you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
The Jesse Blake Sports Report.
Really? Oh, wait, really? The Jesse Blake Sports Report. That's it?
Don't forget, it's the Jesse Blake Sports Report with Jesse Blake.
That's kind of redundant.
Dude, is there a problem?
No, that's fine. I just, I thought maybe you guys would come up with something, good.
Man, just read it.
You know what? Doesn't matter to me. I get paid by the word. Let's do this.
The Jesse Blake Sports Report with Jesse Blake. Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada's sportsbook.
Today's episode of the Jesse Blake Sports Report is brought to you by Doer. Go to doer.ca and use the code SDPN15 for 15% off of your purchase today. And the Doer polo I'm wearing right now has become my favorite golf shirt. I did a lot of golfing this summer, and the fabric that they use is so soft and so flexible. That was the key for me with Doer's jeans and their polos and their tees and everything. It's not only the world's softest pants and a super soft polo, it's also super flexible, so you can hack the ball out of the trees because on every hole you're going to hit into some bushes. And Doer, they make the clothes that allow for that. So go to doer.ca, as I said, use the code SDPN15. Go get a pair of the world's softest pants. Try the performance denim. I swear by it. The pants are incredible. Go get a couple basics. They have men's and women's clothing. Get some basics for the fall. We always need additions to our wardrobes. Doer.ca, SDPN15. Today's episode is also brought to you by Sports Interaction. Go to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN if you are going to make any bets on any of our football picks today. And please gamble responsibly if you are going to gamble. Last week, I tweeted out my survival pool pick of the Ravens, and I survived my pool. And a lot of you who replied with teams like the Colts and the Titans and the Broncos and the Bengals were not so lucky and did not survive. So I'm so sorry. But if you are like me and still in your survival pool, and also I like them against the spread, the Bengals this week are my survival pool pick. We're going to get into it in this podcast. I think it should be a win here this week easily for Joe Burrow. Take them against the spread as well on sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. Let's get into the podcast with Annie O'Donnell talking football week 2. All right, bringing on for the first time ever, it is Annie O'Donnell on the Jesse Blake Sports Report. Thank you, Annie, for joining us.
Jesse, thank you so much for having me. It's so good to be here.
And right now you're in Buffalo getting ready for Monday night?
I am in Buffalo. I'm right in Orchard Park, where Highmark Stadium is, literally 5 minutes from the stadium. I'm in a Bills Mafia fan cave. I'm already feeling the excitement for Monday Night Football, even though we have an amazing Thursday night matchup right now. But I'm already antsy about Monday. Already getting ready.
And the Thursday night game is where I want to start. I brought you on today to preview week 2 of the NFL season. It was a crazy week 1, and I expect more of that going into week 2. And we start with probably the biggest game of the week happens on Thursday. It's Chiefs-Chargers on sportsinteraction.com right now. It's Chiefs -4.5. Do the Chargers have enough to stop Mahomes? Annie, what are you thinking about this game?
Absolutely. I think they do. And I completely agree with you. This is the matchup. We've had first, Bills and the Rams, great first game, great matchup for the first game of the season. Would like to have seen a bit of a closer game, but I'm sure Buffalo is not complaining about ousting the Super Bowl reigning Super Bowl champs. This game, though, you've got the two of the most talented quarterbacks in the league that we're going to watch for the next 10 plus years, God willing, injuries and they stay healthy for the entirety of it. Such a treat that we get to watch them and they're still just so young. But the last few matchups that they've had, they've been very close and they've been very high scoring. So for me, and also Justin Herbert also beat Patrick Mahomes previously at Arrowhead. And everyone likes to bring that up when they talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, is how hard it is to play in that atmosphere. Justin Herbert has no problem with that. So I think it's going to be very close, nonetheless, very high scoring. We're going to see a lot of different faces, maybe different players on fantasy rosters scoring some points. But it's going to be an insane matchup nonetheless. A lot of defense is going to have to step up on both sides. But I wouldn't be surprised if Justin Herbert is the first guy to beat Patrick Mahomes twice in Kansas City. Wouldn't be shocked.
So my issue with Herbert is that is in his career as a starter, he's 15-17. He's 2 games under 500 as a starter, and I feel like people are a little too quick to put him in that top tier category with Joe Burrow and Mahomes and Josh Allen. And I have him just like a little smidge below those guys. And I don't know if he has enough to get it done versus somebody who is obviously an all-star and a future Hall of Famer in Patrick Mahomes.
Honestly, I completely agree with that. And I'm the same way as far as any athlete in any sport. Like, it's hard to rank one unless you have like generational talent guys, like a Connor McDavid. You know that guy's going to be up near the top, even though, you know, we've obviously seen him in the playoffs now recently. But before, when Edmonton was still stinking it up, like we hadn't seen much of him in the playoffs. Whereas now,
it's like, how are we 5 minutes in and we already got to hockey?
I'm sorry. I'm trying to make connections. It's the first thing that came to mind. But like when you see, you know, you have these young, promising talent coming up, you know, it's hard to really put them up in that top category, in a top 5, when we haven't seen them, a lot of them. We've only seen just a small sample size. And that's why I don't know if you know, looking at my content, I'm a big Ravens fan. I'm a big Lamar Jackson supporter. And the fact that so many guys get put above him when he had, a unanimous MVP already under his belt. He has that one playoff win that, you know, everyone was holding over his head. He can throw the football. Everyone's calling him a running back because he doesn't like to throw the football. I completely agree, though. I think when you're talking about the best quarterbacks in the league, that, hey, you need to have more to the resume. We need to have more of a big sample size when you're comparing to these other names that do have a lot of accomplishments. Like a lot of people, like Josh Allen being up there is rightfully so, especially after that game in Kansas City last season. I don't think anyone should be disagreeing with that. But you see the talent from Herbert already. And granted, he had different head coaches. He had different teams around him. He's just that good where you see the talent around him. Would I put him up there, like above certain names? No, but he definitely belongs in the top 10 nonetheless. But I completely get what you're saying, though, in that regard. You know, just need to see more. You know,
yeah, the Lamar comparison. The Lamar comparison's perfect because that's a guy who's done it. You know, there were question marks, and then he went out and won the MVP, and he led a spectacular Ravens team that season. And for Herbert, yeah, I'm just waiting for him to get it done. It's that simple. Like, all the talent's there. We see it's going to happen eventually. I'm just waiting for it to happen. And who knows if it starts tonight with a big win versus the Chiefs. So which side are you on? Chiefs, Chargers tonight? Where are you going?
I think I'm going to go Chargers. It's a hunch for me. It would not shock me, though, if the Chiefs pull it out. And you kind of just think about the matchups nonetheless. First of all, you got San Diego. No, lost. I did that so many years in. It's a habit. You got the Chargers coming off a huge revenge win against the Raiders last week after that playoff game, which that last game before the playoffs, missing it because they lost. And just on both sides of the ball, really. Maybe could see a little bit more from the rushing game from the backfield. They're definitely going to have to do that this week against Kansas City. But defensive-wise, Chargers defense absolutely just took on the Raiders there. And for the Chiefs, it's very easy to bet on them. They obviously, everyone's talking about the AFC West now being the best division in football, and I would have to agree with that, just given that I would say the 4-punch, but after, the Broncos will need to redeem themselves after that loss against Seattle on Monday night. But the Chiefs need to remind people saying, hey, we're still the Chiefs. We lost Tyreek Hill, but Patrick Mahomes still has weapons on that team. And, of course, we know the Mahomes to Kelsey connection, and those two, Travis Kelsey just rises to the occasion against the Chargers. You saw those 2 touchdowns last season in overtime. He's going to find him a lot. And every time you watch the Chiefs and you see Travis Kelsey open, you got to just smack your head. You're like, why? How do you leave that guy? NFL defenses know that they want to prevent that from happening, but he's just so good. He finds a way to get open and they find a way to find each other. So, another common thing I usually say is, you're not going to beat a team like the Kansas City Chiefs kicking field goals, which is ironic considering their kicker, Harrison Butker, is out for the game. And given that this game is going to be tight, I think that's such a loss for the Kansas City Chiefs. And honestly, given the bad juju that's been around kickers during week 1, especially, we'll see if that continues into week 2, but I think that'll hurt Kansas City if it comes down to the wire there.
Okay. The square bet is to just ride Kansas City, and I think that's what I'll be doing. Minus
That's, honestly,
4.5,
that's a safe bet.
Yeah.
Always a safe bet.
All right, let's move over to Sunday. I think the big matchup on Sunday will be Tampa, New Orleans, where Tom Brady has struggled versus the New Orleans Saints. The last 4 games he's played versus them, he's 0-4 with 8 interceptions and only 6 touchdowns. Do the Saints and Dennis Allen do it again and stop Tom Brady? What are you thinking here?
I think so. So. Why not? Honestly, especially given the changes. And I mean, Tom Brady is a guy where the drama, the outside noise has never played into his playing game. But now that it's more his personal life coming into it, obviously everyone's kind of raising questions about the 11 days he took off and Giselle making her comments. Did she actually want him to come back? I don't think she wanted him to come back. I think she's like, hey, let's move on with our lives. Let's have you home.
Yeah, there's no way she wants him playing football right now.
She probably wanted him retired like 5-6 years ago. But the man, hey, he wants to keep winning Super Bowls. He feels like he has something to prove. 7 rings, and he feels like he has something to prove. I mean, for any guy, you just remember when I think Adam Schefter released the report that he was retiring, and the countless posts, the celebration of his career. The man has nothing to prove, and I think maybe he's coming back just because he was a little, I would have laughed if I thought, he's coming back simply because he didn't announce his retirement on his own terms kind of thing. But you kind of feel like a guy like Tom would want to do what Kobe Bryant did, what a Derek Jeter, a Mariano Rivera. You have the farewell year and it's planned, and teams can give their do a proper send off, a goodbye kind of thing. You would think a guy like Tom Brady, just that caliber, you'd want that to happen. But I digress. Back to the matchup here. The Saints are an interesting team to me because you think about that 0-4 record, and of course that doesn't factor in that playoff win that the Buccaneers had to go on and win the Super Bowl. But no Drew Brees, no Sean Payton, and you would think after Brees called it a career, what do the Saints do now? This has been their quarterback for so long, but you still have all these offensive weapons. What do? Do you try and trade these guys and do a rebuild? Do you, kind of get under that salary cap? What do you do? And the Saints really took the approach. They're like, no. We're going to still try and find a way to win. Jameis is going to step up, be the guy. And they're still, hey, with Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas, I'm so pissed. I left Michael Thomas on my bench last week. And
He's Michael Thomas. Why would you start him?
Because he was injured. You never know with that kind of Achilles injury. You just never know how these guys.
He had an unreal second half.
I know. I'm kicking myself. I don't want to talk about it. I still won, so it doesn't matter. But,
That's good.
I was also flexing on picking up Kyle Pitts in my fantasy draft, and he got 3.4 points.
Yeah, no, Kyle Pitts struggled in week 1.
So sure. I'm rooting for a comeback for him. But the Saints still have this team, especially special teams as well. They have a team that can get this done, that can win football games, and can take back that NFC South division. And I say, why not continue the 0-5 record here? And you could say that Tom Brady has, he wants to get the Saints. He has this revenge. I was like, Tom Brady doesn't care about having a winning record against the New Orleans Saints. I just don't. I think he would. You think Tom would be
so ultra competitive that's something he would care about? He knows what people say. We're sitting here talking about 0-4 in the last 4. He knows it. I think he wants to win. And
now that you bring it up, Tom is a weird dude, and he would probably just be sleepless. He's still sleepless over losing a Super Bowl to the New York Giants after going undefeated during the season. I get that. I get that just gnaws at you. But we're talking about regular season in the while he's with the Buccaneers against the New Orleans Saints. But you do bring up an interesting point where
it's a narrative.
He is that guy. We're talking about the man with the TB12 method that doesn't, eat strawberries or drink coffee. Right. That he wouldn't be annoyed about a regular season record. He probably wouldn't be.
Yeah, it's a narrative we're talking about, so I'm sure he's heard the noise. And it's Bucks minus 2.5 right now on sportsinteraction.com. And yeah, I think 2 straight games here. I'm going to be riding with the favorites, and it sounds like you're going to be with the underdog here. Saints is again here.
Yeah, I'm going Saints.
Okay, and let's move on to the other Sunday matchup that I think is going to be with a lot of eyeballs on it. The Bengals and the Cowboys, coming off that just disaster of a game versus the Bucs on Sunday night, where Dak's gone. Jerry Jones is saying it might be 4 weeks. The initial prognostications about his injuries were about 6 to 8. We'll see how long he's out. But Cooper Rush as their starting quarterback, I don't have a lot of faith that the Cowboys can do anything here versus the Bengals. And like their defense was very turnover dependent last year, and it didn't look great last week versus the Bucs.
No, I mean, they definitely got better as opposed. I remember that 2020 Cowboys defense was atrocious. So they took positive steps to get better, but you got to feel, I mean, especially after watching Hard Knocks last year, and you really I like Hard Knocks because you get to meet these players, not on a personal level nonetheless, but, you kind of get to know more about them, and you could just feel for Dak Prescott, especially after that 2020, season-ending injury he had. You were hoping for a bounce-back year for him. And week 1, of course, going out with the thumb. And I think Dak's a guy, a lot of people, it's interesting where certain fans rank Dak Prescott when you're talking quarterbacks. I do think he's near and around the top 10, but I think a lot of, so I think he's severely overrated in some aspects, but also like a lot of fans really underrate him just given his accomplishments and what he's been able to do. I know a lot of head scratches when he got that huge deal from Jerry Jones and the Cowboys, but God, that game was awful. And that's somebody. I also have CeeDee Lamb on one of my teams, so let's.
I don't think he's a wide receiver 1 this year. I don't think he's finishing in the top 12 in fantasy points in wide receivers. I worry about CeeDee. And
honestly, the biggest the highlight of CeeDee Lamb's career was him getting drafted and looking over at his girlfriend grabbing his phone, and he's like, "Give me that back." But I mean, the Bengals too. Just you think about this matchup here, and the Bengals had just a wacky game against the Steelers where they looked not put together and ended up coming away with the L there. And Joe Burrow getting sacked. What was it? 3 interceptions in just the first half?
It was 7 times Burrow was sacked, 4 interceptions, and fumbled the ball. And his first pass attempt of the year was the pick 6.
Yeah,
he had a weird game by his standards, and the Bengals by their standards had an awful game. But they looked good at moments. On the last drive of the of regular time when Jamar Chase caught 4 touchdowns and 3 of them were taken back. They looked great at that moment.
One of those should have been a touchdown, but the Bengals should have challenged that. No brainer about it. Oh, yeah. I remember last year in the playoffs, Burrow was getting sacked a lot, but the Bengals were winning football games. So you were kind of like, all right, well, that's a concern. But one of the biggest things going back to that 2021 draft and why the Bengals thought they were going to pick up a Penei Sewell instead of Jamar Chase is to add that protection for Joe Burrow, because he's coming off that knee surgery and that knee injury he had. Of course, Penei Sewell's now with the Detroit Lions. And I don't think they regret drafting Jamar Chase. I certainly wouldn't if I were the Cincinnati Bengals, but that offensive line has got to be better, and Joe Burrow's got to get rid of the ball faster. And like we said, it's week 1, of course, there's flukes, everybody's freaking out, there's all decisions, everyone's saying fire this guy, release this guy, everything. Week 1, get the nerves out. Some of these big guys don't play during the preseason, so this is their first time taking snaps outside of training camp and practice. But I'd be hard not to go. I mean, I think the easy choice here is the Bengals. I mean, you're without Dak Prescott. You've got solid weapons for the Cowboys, but God, I would be shocked. I'm wondering what the spread was before Dak got injured and what it was after.
I believe the Cowboys were the favorites. I think they were -2.5, and then once the Sunday night game happened, it went off the board, and now the Bengals are -7.5 on Sports Interaction.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, huge 9-point swing there, and it makes sense. Just what we know about the Cowboys. And let's go to the biggest matchup of the entire week: Monday night, Bills Titans. It's the biggest matchup because you will be there live and in person.
I will be there.
The Chiefs Chargers, the biggest matchup, on paper, but for everybody, we already put that out. But for you personally, and for this podcast, you're gonna be there.
I know, it's crazy.
What are you going to go through a table?
I want to. It's on my list, which my mother is probably going to be like, don't you dare. But I won't. It's all right. I'm old enough where I can make my own decisions. So yeah. I want to experience. I think that's the best part about football too, is just, the passion of the fan base. And here, in Buffalo, just driving around, and I'm not from here. So I'm from California. So, honestly, California, you get a big melting pot because so many people are from everywhere and they move into California. So you get a whole mix of teams, which is really cool in one sense, but it is all about the Bills here. And because listen, nobody's, with the exception of the goat head coming back, nobody's really getting out of bed for the Buffalo Sabres currently. Maybe, hey, who knows? Maybe in a few years' time, they got a great farm system, but right now it is all about the Buffalo Bills.
That Tage Thompson extension, that was huge for them. It's
huge.
It's going to be a good rebuilding year.
Hey, a lot of young talent. Kevin Adams is working with what he can. Got a nice haul out of that Jack Eichel trade. So we'll see what comes of it. Certainly, you have a lot of trade stock, if that, too, and salary cap to work with. But it is all Bills here. You see everyone greets each other with "Go Bills." It's Bills flags everywhere. I imagine this is kind of like what Green Bay would be like, because that's all they have there is the Packers. But It's just, when I have the opportunity, I'm in a wedding on Saturday, and then Monday Night Football, it's happening at home. It's the home opener. I'm not missing that. There's certain things you got to just experience, whether or not you're a fan of those teams or not. And I'm a fan of sports. I'm a fan of football. I want to watch a damn good football game. You got Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, that electric offense on one side. And then probably my favorite player to watch outside of my own team is Derrick Henry. I love watching that man just tear through defenses down the field. I think it's poetry. He makes it look so easy just because he's a monster of a man. So I'm looking forward. I'm hoping it's a great matchup. I hope it's a great game, but I'm which I know it will be, but I want a high scoring. I want a great football game.
The atmosphere there is going to be unbelievable. I'm so jealous that you get to experience that, especially on a Monday night.
Right.
And for the on the field stuff, you mentioned Derrick Henry. Coming into the year, I was very low on Derrick Henry in terms of fantasy, because when I looked at his numbers last year when he wasn't injured, it seemed very carry dependent. He needed a huge workload to get up to those crazy 150, 130 rushing numbers. And I felt the yards per carry weren't really there. He wasn't going off for these crazy 8 yards every single time. It was more 3.5-ish range. But he looked okay week one. He got kind of supplanted by the backup there who was getting all the pass catches. I forget his name off the top of my head. But we'll see what we get out of Derrick Henry. Are you expecting a big game from the Titans defense and them being able to stop Josh Allen and then the offense getting it going a little?
They're going to need to have a big game. Otherwise, they're going to get dog walked down the field by Josh Allen. With that home crowd atmosphere, there's no chance there. It's one thing. The Bills are always going to have the home advantage, of course. But when you have, and this is all due respect to the Tennessee Titans here, but when you have, you think of passionate, big fan bases in the NFL. Who are the first teams that come to mind for you? You think of the Packers. The Steelers, of course, the Cowboys being one. That's one where, you can kind of, maybe in some stadiums you can feel that home. I will disrespect my home crowd, my hometown, Southern Californians, but sometimes at SoFi, teams that travel, of course, everyone wants to go to SoFi.
All of those are road games. The Chargers and Rams, they play every game on the road.
Truly. And honestly, a large part of that is because they're, the Rams obviously aren't new to LA, but it takes time to establish a fan base and establish that loyalty. So fans that have grew up in Southern California and said, hey, I don't want to root for the Chargers, but we don't have a team. So I'm going to pick a random one. That's why you get California teams that like the Giants, that like the Carolina Panthers, but it's going to be hard facing off against that Bills crowd atmosphere this is Super Bowl or bust here. This is the best team in football, and there's no question about it. Their only chance there is, Ryan Tannehill's another quarterback that I think gets slept on a lot. He's efficient. I characterize it like this, and I say quarterbacks, I kind of compare them to cars. So Ryan Tannehill's like a Honda Civic, maybe a few steps above, gets the job done, will make a couple good plays, get you where you need to go, but he's not a Patrick Mahomes. He's not a Josh Allen. He's not gonna, do anything.
He's not a Mercedes.
Exactly. They're Mercedes. What's the top one?
Like an AMG,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're
maybe
talking
G-Wagon.
luxury cars here. But, they have the capability to get the job done, as far as, getting points on the board and staying competitive. And especially, like you said, Derrick Henry's got to be that guy. He's got to just tear through that I shouldn't say very good, a great and highly ranked Buffalo defense. And that's the scariest part about the Bills, is they're just top to bottom stacked. There's not one part where they're like, okay, this is going to carry. Maybe some games you'll have, okay, the offense really carried them here, defense carried them here, but you don't have a weak link at all on this team. It just depends who shows up what game. So if the Bills play to their capability, the Bills play to what they can do, I don't see the Titans stand a chance here.
All right, I think we're both riding the Bills wave this week.
Gotta ride the Bills. We're on the Bills wagon. Bills Mafia.
Yeah. Before we go here, I just want our audience listening and watching right now to get to know you a little bit more, because it's your first appearance on this channel, on this podcast. So,
all right,
you're a Ducks fan. You're a Dodgers fan. You've mentioned you're from California. What are your expectations for the Ducks this year? Can the Dodgers win a non-COVID title? Give us those two takes.
Okay, so let's start with the Ducks. This is an interesting summer because it's Pat Verbeek's first summer as general manager of the Ducks, first offseason without Bob Murray in 13 years. So I really didn't know what to expect coming into this, but I really liked the additions he made. Obviously, you have the cap floor that you have to get to, and the Ducks are still very low under the salary cap. So it's still a rebuilding year, especially in that Pacific Division where you have the Calgary Flames and the Edmonton Oilers, who are going to take, I think, finish 1 and 2 in the division. Of course, everyone was so confident that the Vegas Golden Knights were going to do the same last year, and we obviously know that didn't happen. That'll be interesting to see what happens with them too, given their goaltending situation. But on another note,
their lack of goaltending situation.
Yeah, exactly. I think that the Ducks finish, if they're not maybe teetering into that wild card spot, one of those wild card spots, but I'm going to say another year, no playoffs. And I'll eat my words and be surprised if I'm wrong, but I still think that this team needs time. This team needs, there's still a lot of young talent in here, and Pat Verbeek really he's playing long ball. He sees the long picture. This is not a win now team. The additions this summer were not win now. We're not, hey, we're cup or bust. Jonathan Klingberg, obviously the biggest addition this year on that 1 year, $7 million deal, which, hey, I think is perfect. It's a short term. Hey, if it works out, great, and you want to stay. If not, we'll ship you off to a competitor at the deadline. It's $7 million. And that's obviously he wanted a longer term, but I'm stingy about giving defensemen that are kind of in that older category long-term deals. Like the Brent Seabrook deal that he got, that Chicago gave him still. I'm like, why? Well, that was a dumb move. I get it. You just won your third Stanley Cup in 6 years, but dumb move. But Verbeek really set this team up where you've got a lot of young talent in the league. You got a young talent in, the AHL, in juniors, in college, and really give them time to develop. Don't rush them up through, skipping any steps. Mason McTavish will obviously join. I think there's no chance he doesn't make the team this year. He's not old enough. He's surpassed juniors and he's not old enough to go to the AHL. So I think no doubt he stays with the team. But I think this time it's really keep the team competitive, like, still win some hockey games. We won't tank, but, give time just for the young guys to come up and really get introduced into the league. So
it's probably the best young roster in the league.
One of them, definitely. I would argue the Kings are up there too. I know a lot of question marks around Quentin Byfield and his performance. Of course, he was injured last year, so a lot of people are saying, "Oh, maybe this guy doesn't really live up to the hype." I was like, give him time. It's 1 year. He started off on a bad foot. Literally, he injured his foot. So, I think California hockey, when competitive, it's such a great rivalry between the Ducks and the Kings. And even though I do not like the Kings at all, I think that it's better for hockey when both teams are good. So I'm excited for the future for both teams, but I could see the Kings getting into that third slot.
No, they're a potential playoff team. And just before I get your thoughts on the Dodgers, thumbs up or thumbs down on the Zegras NHL 23 cover?
I like it. I like
thumbs up? Okay.
I like it. I know a lot of people don't. I know. But And I know the people got mad at it for weird reasons, I think. And
people are upset at like the palm trees and stuff.
Palm trees. But that's what got me so funny. Like, that literally made me laugh. Is so many people were coming on and saying like palm trees aren't hockey. Like, what does that mean? I said, you just had Tampa win 2 cups. Plenty of palm trees there. Like, I grew up in California. I grew up in ice rinks in California. There's palm trees outside of ice rinks. Palm trees and hockey works a lot of places. So I like having Sarah Nurse on there. Honestly, people were they said, why put those 2 players together? And I said, why not? You're tapping into 2 markets. You want to, expand your horizons of a video game. People know Trevor Zegers. He's extremely marketable. I don't get the hate for him at all. I think he's exciting. I think he's entertaining, and he's just fun to listen to, fun to watch in interviews. And generally hockey players, not the most eclectic personalities. So it's nice to see somebody that just loves the game, wants to have a good time, and doesn't take himself too seriously while putting out great efforts on the ice. So,
and as a Canadian, we have to stop gatekeeping hockey a little. We can have palm trees on a hockey video game cover. It's okay. People will survive.
Exactly.
Other people play hockey in different parts of the world. Palm trees exist.
I agree.
And Dodgers World Series, yes, no?
Yes, it's World Series or bust at this point. They clinched the division with 3 weeks left in the regular season. I mean, at this point, with that lineup, there's no excuse. If they lose, if they don't make it to the World Series and win the World Series, it's completely on them. They're the best team in baseball. I think, the only real threats, you would argue the New York Mets, who just had, in that series a few weeks ago, had the Dodgers number there for 2 of those games. But you can make the argument that the real threat is in the American League with the Astros and the Yankees. And I know
the Blue Jays.
Of course. All right. We'll see. Well, you guys have a lot. I have a lot of. There's a lot of fan favorites I have on the Blue Jays. You have a lot of former Dodgers on the Blue Jays.
Okay.
Rock Stripling, Ryu, I love those guys. So that respect for the Blue Jays. But honestly, I'm excited to see the expanded playoff postseason bracket too. I like that there's going to be more teams for one, but that as a baseball fan that had to experience that 1-game wild card for the first time last season, that was horrible.
Oh yeah.
As exciting as it was, my nerves were shot. Like, it's 1 game. It's like football. Like,
you play 162 games. It shouldn't come down to 1 9-inning game. It's crazy.
Exactly. Which obviously that Chris Taylor walk-off 2-run home run to win it bottom of the 9th was nuts. But I like the idea of a 3-game series and plus more teams with a shot in the postseason. So I'm excited to see how that plays out this year. But absolutely World Series for the Dodgers. If they don't win it, it'll be either injuries or the common things that are reasons why the Dodgers lose games, leaving men on base, no run support, like the constant, literally the amount of times base is loaded, nobody comes in. It haunts me. It's a constant. It's just always been a problem. Never not being able to, you have the bases loaded, nobody out, 3 guys in a row strike out. That happened last year against the Braves too. That's another team you can maybe say would be along with the Mets, the Braves, the Phillies. I'm not, with Bryce Harper on the team, you can always argue, they can, they're always a threat, but I don't see them going too far there. So I think their ride through the National League should be, I won't say breezy. But I would love to see a Dodgers Mets NLCS. I think
that'd be really exciting.
Existence. Yeah. And especially with a guy like Jacob deGrom, I want to see the man healthy. I want to see, when you have such exciting players, even if they're not on your team, you want them to be healthy. You want them to put out the amazing performances that they do. So I hope that he stays healthy and that the Mets don't run into their usual string of bad luck running into the playoffs.
So lastly, before we go here, can you tell people where they can follow you and what your content is like? You're huge on TikTok. That's where I discovered your stuff. Just tell people about where they can find your content.
So you can find me on any social media platform. I'm Sweet Annie OD. I do TikTok, Twitter, Instagram a little bit. Instagram's a little mix of more like my personal interests. Like I'm big into, classic rock and just like my daily life, but also post a lot of sports stuff. I have a podcast called OD on Sports where I just rant about whatever sports topics I want to rant about. I am big on my TikTok platform and following. I don't take myself seriously at all on TikTok. So it's a lot of just some of them, it's like ranting videos about something in sports I want to talk about, or sometimes it's relating something that happened in sports to a movie scene that I know. So I'll use that sound to kind of draw those two connections. It's fun. I don't take myself seriously at all on TikTok. And I think that's the best part. Sports are supposed to be fun. At the end of the day, no matter how much, analysis and stress we put on as sports fans, it's fun. So and that's how I feel like I really make that connection with a lot of people, is people like to laugh, people like humor. So I like to think I'm the best of it all.
No, it's perfect. Everybody listening, everybody watching, go follow Annie. You won't regret it. And thank you. And I want to have you on next week, just briefly, so I can check in to see how it was in person watching the Bills on Monday night.
Oh,
if
absolutely.
you're cool with that, I'll bring you back
Absolutely.
on. Okay, awesome. We'll see you next week then. Thank you so much again for joining us.
All right. Thanks, Jesse. Thanks for having me.
That is it for us today. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you chose to be watching or listening to this podcast right now, and I really appreciate you. I can't wait to check in with Annie next week, see how it was on Monday night. I'm going to be doing some NHL fantasy content coming up in the next couple of weeks. As we lead into the season, I'm going to do some sleeper picks and some strategies on how to win your NHL fantasy league in 22-23 this upcoming season. So I'm very excited for that. That's coming down as we lead in towards the season. Thank you again. I will see you next week.
And that is how it's done.
The Jesse Blake Sports Report with Jesse Blake, powered by Sports Interaction, Canada's Sportsbook.
Jesse Blake, the guy that likes to hear his name twice in one sentence. Sure, I know him. No, he doesn't have an ego at all.